Welcome back to the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. Now we're going to get into the Vikings. But before we do, you mentioned, Lance, that you had a difficult Black Friday. Was that because of the game or were there some other issues?
The game just can totally deflated me. So
Yeah,
it's all good. Everything else was good, but that game
that
was
makes
just,
sense. That makes sense. Yeah,
yep.
on my end, I got my Christmas lights up on our porch, so I was happy I got something done.
Nice. I'm proud of you for getting your lights up, Andrew, but disappointed how long you took to get your lights up.
Well, hey, I got them before December. That's all I'm saying.
That's
Got them
good.
up before December.
So are you
My
are you
wife's,
a
yeah, go ahead.
are you an after Thanksgiving person for Christmas stuff?
I'm a we'll get it done when we have time kind of person.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, I don't have a specific plan. I think last year we had our Christmas tree up at the beginning of Thanksgiving, at the beginning of November. This year, it's a different story. It just we'll see what happens. And with a 1 year kiddo, it's makes things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, but it's going to be exciting because this is going to be his first real Christmas. Because last year he was like a month old, so that doesn't really count.
No. Yeah, when you can start interacting with them, that becomes a
Mhm.
whole different feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think I've delayed the inevitable long enough. So let's get to the 4-8 Vikings who are bottoming out and the season is over. So first, I just want to shout out the defense. Got to give them so much love, so much credit, and it's kind of sad that they're playing so well and they have to deal with the offense that they're having to deal with. So our defense, they held Sam Darnold 14 for 26, 128 yards, sacked him 4 times. We got a couple turnovers. We were all over the place. That how many times the Seahawks had to settle for field goals or went three and out was just amazing. I mean, Sam Darnold had an 18.3 QBR, and that was because our defense held them in check and also holding the receiving leader to 2 for 23 yards on 4 targets is phenomenal. So much credit to the defense. Got to shout out our two young studs, Dallas Turner and Jalen Redmond. They have been a force for us, especially recently. Dallas Turner had 2 sacks this game, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. He forced a couple fumbles. He was all over the place. He's our young. I mean, this is one of our few draft hits. He was the one we traded up for in the 2024 draft. After we drafted McCarthy, we traded like a second and a four to go up and get him. And at the beginning, we're like, what are we doing here? He's finally turning out into a good player. Got to give credit for that. And then Jalen Redmond was our undrafted free agent we signed last year. He's developed into a really good D lineman, best D lineman we have. So our defense is looking so good. I just feel so bad for guys like Harrison Smith, who this is most likely his last year. I don't see him coming back next year, and he has to deal with this team. He's playing hard. He's not the same player he was 5 years ago, of course not, but he came back because everyone thought this is a possible run we could make with the additions we made. And the offense has just been putrid. So shout out to the defense. Love you guys. You guys have been playing hard, kept us in games, but the offense just can't do anything. And going to the offense, I want to start with, well, before I get to the offense, you mentioned that the NFL is a game of momentum, and it absolutely is. And there were 2 plays in particular in this game that were momentum swingers to the Seahawks big time, and this happened early. So I think it was still a 0-0 game at the point I'm starting with. But there was a pass that Darnold threw that was a little out of the reach of his receiver. His receiver got fingertips on it, and it landed in the breadbasket of Byron Murphy Jr. Now, I don't blame him so much for not catching it because he didn't expect the ball to land right in his lap. But if he were to react quick enough and intercept that ball, he takes it to the house for 6 because there's nobody in front of him. But it just couldn't get his hands on it. That kind of play is a momentum changing play that the Vikings very well could have won this game. If they start out 7-0 with the defense playing as well as they are, and then you just basically just run the ball, get a couple first downs, and you're good to go. That was huge. And then the other play, which was the one that was just shown across the world, which there were so many things wrong with this. So defense gets a strip sack of Sam Darnold. It was awesome. We get the ball like on the 20 or 30 yard line, our own 20 or 30 yard line. We move the ball down the field, get a first down, move the ball down the field, 4th and 1 from the 4 yard line. So there's a couple different ways you can go about there. It's a 3-0 game at the time. Kick the field goal, tie it up. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. Or, 4th and 1 from the 4. Okay, you want to go for it so you can pin the team back if you don't get it. I'm okay with that too. But why would you call a play to where your quarterback, Max Brosmer, who has never played in the NFL before, who is young, undrafted free agent, no one drafted him, you call a play where he rolls out, it's a play action rollout, where a guy that's not very athletic doesn't really know what he's seeing very well, not super confident. Why would you put him in that situation? I just don't get it. Credit to the Seahawks because the play they called was that play action of the running back where defenses tend to ignore the running back after he doesn't get the ball and then he goes to the flat wide open and it's an easy first down. Credit to the Seahawks, they covered it. But then what are we going to do once it's covered? There is no plan B, and Max Brosmer doesn't know what to do with the ball. Now, to his fault, what's one thing you don't do? Just throw the ball up in the air up for grabs, pick six. But that's what he did. Going to the ground, he just literally chunked it up. Just take the sack. It's 4th down. They get the ball on the 20-yard line. Cool. Let our defense stop him again. Just don't do what you did, Max. That was just awful. Now, he should not have been put in that situation. So the blame is mostly on the coach and the offensive play call. But come on, Max, you can't do that. That pick six right there ended the game. Game over. We were down, I think actually we were down 6-0 at the time. So instead of kicking a field goal going down 6-3, or instead of the six getting the ball on the 20-yard line, having to march down the field only up 6-0, our defense high chance of stopping him again. Immediate 7 points, 13-0, game's over. Nothing we can do. That was game set match. Um, I just don't get that play call. If you have an athletic quarterback, or if you have a quarterback that knows what he's seeing, and you call that play, okay. But why not just go big on big, run the ball up the middle or kind of to the outside, see if you can get 1 yard by leaning forward. I don't get it. I don't get it. And that's what KOC has been doing all year long. I remember with last game against the Bears, I think it was, we had a 4th and 1. Well, we did run the ball up the middle. We got stuffed. We didn't get it. And I knew that caused KOC to think, well, I just can't get it. Run the ball on 4th and 1 then. I got to throw it. And then he goes and throws it on 4th and 1 in this game. So most fault on that play goes to the coach and the play call. But Max, you can't do that. Just if nothing's there, throw it immediately in the end zone. If it gets picked off in the end zone, okay, that sucks, but gets picked off in the end zone. But don't get the player in your face and then just throw it up. 3 defenders against 1 receiver, easy pick six, and that was the game right there. Um, so that 4th one was awful. The coaching was awful. It's the coaching's. This has been. I think I said this last episode. This has been KOC's worst coaching season of his entire career. He looks lost out there. He doesn't have control of the team, and there's a lot of reports going on that there's been reports for a long time this year, which I kind of ignored. But now I'm thinking these reports are pretty accurate because sometimes there's just rumors going around. But I think these reports are accurate where there's been some internal drama, internal dialogue going on that no one could truly figure out why. There's been some finger pointing, there's been some issues in the locker room, and it's starting to pour out on the field because the coaching is the number one problem. But if you watch the players, they're not dialed in. They're not locked in. Jordan Addison has dropped like a ton of passes in 2 games that are wide open, very well could be if he catches it and if he makes a move, touchdowns because he's that electric. He's basically it's kind of like a skinny post or a deep post where ball's in his breadbasket and he has a safety to beat and that's it. and he's dropped the pass like 3 times in a row. Now, he did have a decent game this game. Toward the end, he got some catches. He was 5 for 36, but on 10 targets. And I know two of those he just straight up dropped. One was a first down, one was a very well could be touchdown if he makes a good move. That just goes to show that these players aren't dialed in. Even Justin Jefferson had now this was a tough catch. It was a pass that was a little behind him, but purposely behind him because that was the only way the ball could be placed, but he didn't catch it. It just popped right out of his hands, incomplete pass. That would have been a first down. And then you saw him on the sidelines just sitting on a water cooler by himself. We were losing like 19-0 at that time, so the game was over. But the players just aren't dialed in. And that does go to coaching. KOC does not have this locker room right now. Or 4-8, losing definitely has a big fault to that. But there's just been something going on internally that I just don't understand. And that goes to two stories that were released, one before this game, one after this game, which is wild, wild why these stories got released. Because this came from inside the building, these two particular stories. One was about Max Brosmer. I don't know if you've heard this, but there's been reports all week long that the Vikings have something in Max Brosmer. They found something in that, like this diamond in the rough that no one saw, and they have so much belief in him. They were talking him up so much that it seemed like the Vikings believed in him more than McCarthy, more than the guy they trade up to draft. And there was one particular story in mind that I think Adam Schefter had, where Kwesi, our GM, was basically saying that he saw this guy a couple years ago and he decided to hold a pro day for him. And he wished he didn't because that caused other teams to see him and know about him and know about his little secret that Kwesi found. And so Kwesi he was disappointed in himself that he let that leak out that, oh no, there's other teams that's going to see what this guy can do. And so Minnesota signs him as undrafted free agent. And then he goes out there and again, not full fault on him. He wasn't ready. That goes to coaching, bad play, bad game plan. But he looked awful. He looked 19 for 30, 126 yards, 4 interceptions, 4 sacks. He did not know what he was looking at out there, which again, first game playing. But why would you hype him up that much if he's going to look like this? That's because, to me, Kwesi is trying to save his job. He's trying to hype him up before the game where if he does pop, hey, I found him. That was my guy I found. McCarthy was KOC's guy. He told me to draft him, but I found Max Brosmer. I think there's a lot of finger pointing going on right now because people are now seeing that their jobs are on the line and they're trying to save them. And that's not a good place to be. And the other story that was released, which again, I think this was Kwesi's side. Could be wrong, but it was right after the game. I think Pelissero might have had this, but basically saying that there's now a report, which why is this coming out now instead of the beginning of the year? It's just the timing is wild. Again, I think it's because it's coming from Kwesi's camp. But there was a report going on that Minnesota offered Sam Darnold the same exact contract that Seattle did at the beginning of the year, and he chose Seattle. What is going on? Why is that coming out? Because Kwesi's trying to say, hey, look, I wanted Sam Darnold. KOC wanted JJ McCarthy. Look what Sam Darnold's doing, which I have to say, Sam Darnold not looking all that great. He's been fine. He's been leading this team to 9-3. Awesome, but it's not been because of him. I want Vikings fans to realize that. I was hoping seeing this game, seeing how average to above average he is. He's not elite. He's fine. He's a good quarterback, but he's not going to carry you to a Super Bowl. I was hoping Vikings fans would have saw that. But the other narrative that came out of this game, which this blows my mind, is now fans are saying, okay, we can't have a second year quarterback next year or a third year quarterback take over our team. We need to sign a veteran. We need to sign someone available. And I'm thinking, well, who's available? You're wanting to trade for a Mac Jones who's going to get you to 8, 9 wins, maybe a playoff berth, no further. You're wanting to sign Aaron Rodgers, who is old and causing so much issues inside the locker room where he's pointing fingers to his receivers instead of himself. You want that in your locker room where you're going to get 8, 9 wins, maybe a playoff berth, maybe not, out in the first round. You want to try to get a Kyler Murray, that contract. where not going to be able to afford it anyway, and he's going to get you to 9 wins, maybe a playoff berth. Do Minnesota Vikings fans and commentators want to stay in average mediocrity where you're fighting for a wild card but never anything more? Is that what we're wanting? If that's what we're wanting, all right, go get Mac Jones. You'll be happy to win 8, 9 games, be more competitive, but never a Super Bowl. If that's what they're wanting. Me, I'm wanting a Super Bowl. So I'm not wanting door number one where you're guaranteed 8, 9 wins, maybe fight for the playoffs, as opposed to door number two, which is a total wild card. You could go 4-8 like we are right now, or a quarterback could pop and develop someone that you don't know that is 22 years of age still, the youngest quarterback in the league, and there's a chance he could develop into a stud. I'd rather that door. And if he doesn't develop into a stud, okay, we tried. Now we have a high draft pick where we can try again. Now, if unless you're telling me we can get like a Justin Herbert or something like that, if we can get a Justin Herbert, okay, I'm on board. I'd rather have a Justin Herbert than a JJ McCarthy. I'm totally on board. I'm a Herbert fan, but that's not going to happen. We have these old veterans that aren't that good that we can turn into an average to above average quarterback like a Sam Darnold, make a playoff berth, and they get bounced out first round. Or we can try door number two, where we can develop someone from the ground up and hopefully be able to find a diamond in the rough, a stud. But every Vikings fan is just wanting to have fun on Sundays and win a game or compete to win a game, and then I'll have a chance at a Super Bowl. That's what everyone's wanting, it seems like. And it just blows my mind. Blows my mind. Couple other points here. Let's see where I was at. Oh, there's this Justin Jefferson thing where everyone's saying he wants to be traded. That is not him. He's defeated right now, which makes sense because he's not getting a lot of numbers. He had 2 catches for 4 yards this game. 2 catches for 4 yards. That lost me a fantasy game this week, and now I'm basically bounced out of the playoffs. I lost by 4 points, and Justin Jefferson got me 2 catches for 4 yards. I was like, man, if he just caught a couple more passes, but hey, it happens. But he does not want to be traded. People need to calm down with that. He is not one of those receivers that is all about me, me, me. He still believes in this team and the coach. I know he declined interviews after the game, his post-conference interviews, but what's he going to say? He said the same thing for 3 straight weeks. He just wants a breather. He was interviewed in the locker room saying the same thing he said over the past 3 weeks. He declined interviews for 1 week. That's fine. If he does that more often, like 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, okay, now there's a problem. But just let him be by himself, breathe, because this was a horrible game he doesn't want to think about. Um, let's see. Okay. So there's one interesting thing I want to touch on. So this has been a really, really bad KOC year. One of his worst, like I said, his worst coaching year. Even the year that Kirk Cousins got hurt and Minnesota bottomed out with the Pastronaut and um and Jaron Hall and all those guys. But that was injuries. That wasn't fully his fault. He coached fine that year. This has been his worst coaching year. He hasn't developed the quarterbacks. He hasn't coached well. He hasn't called games well. I have an interesting thought, and this would be probably the best coaching room in the NFL if this happened. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not even saying I fully want it to happen, but it'd be interesting if it did. What if Minnesota decided to demote KOC to the OC, just offensive coordinator, because he has too much on his plate. He's not coaching this team very well. Let Brian Flores run that defense. Let Kevin O'Connell just focus on the offense and do it better. And then what if the Steelers fired Mike Tomlin? Because it's about that
Mm.
time. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. What if we had Mike Tomlin as our head coach, KOC as our OC, and we had Flores as our DC? Whew, that is a coaching staff right there. That's a coach staff I could get behind all day long. That'd be phenomenal. KOC can focus on the offense instead of having his eyes everywhere across the team. Tomlin can just focus on the overall team dynamic, not have to worry about the offense or the defense because he can trust those two guys. Well, can you trust KOC? I don't know. We'll see on that. But that'd be interesting. I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said, I don't even fully know if I want that to happen, but that'd be kind of crazy. And I know that our ownership is not happy about this, but I do still believe in JJ McCarthy. This is the final point I want to make. I still believe in him. He needs to develop. Because there's signs of life in that. There were no signs of life in Max Brosmer this game, but there were signs of life in JJ McCarthy his first 6 games. There were times where like, okay, I see that. He's got a cannon for an arm. He just needs to learn some mechanics. He needs to learn to layer balls. He needs to learn when to fire it in there, when to throw it over the top. Because not a lot of people realize this. But going into the NFL, he was probably the quarterback with the least amount of pass attempts in his college career out of every one of those drafted quarterbacks. Because Michigan, they ran the ball, played great defense. He made some great plays, but he just didn't throw the ball that much. He didn't have the reps. So he needs reps. He needs to learn. He's 22 years old. He doesn't know fully how to play quarterback. And I still believe KOC can get that out of him. If anyone can, I believe it is him. So I'm not out on McCarthy yet. I'm hoping these next 5 games he can show something, show more signs of life. Season's over, so don't worry about trying to make the playoffs or trying to win every game. Just have McCarthy out there, develop some stuff out of him, see what he can do, and then next year, if we're still seeing this, then I have an issue. Then I'm starting to be out of McCarthy. But you got to give him time. Do you think the Bills wanted Josh Allen out at year one? Maybe they did, but I'm sure they're happy they didn't get rid of him. Do you believe your Eagles wanted Jalen Hurts out after year one when he was struggling to pass the ball? Maybe, but I'm sure you glad they didn't get rid of him. We can go on and on and on with quarterbacks. Jordan Love, his first year, he wasn't very good. He was inaccurate. Do the Packers wish they got rid of him? I'm sure they're glad they have him right now. Even though I'm not the biggest Jordan Love guy, he is still a really good quarterback. So it's just over and over and over and over again. There's times when quarterbacks just need time, especially when he's 22 years old and barely has any quarterback reps in his life outside of the NFL. It's just wild how impatient, how emotional fans are. Like you were saying with that story about the fans paid money to this other than going to Disney World. Okay, then don't go to the game. Let this team have time to develop itself. Only thing I feel bad on is for the veterans on the team. They signed up to have a year go to waste, basically, like Harrison Smith, like Aaron Jones. This is toward the end of their career. And Justin Jefferson is still in his prime, but it's toward the end of his prime. So this is bad
Mhm.
for him. He probably has, what, 2 years left of prime left, maybe 3. So this does suck for that, but you just gotta be patient. You need these quarterbacks to develop. If we had Sam Darnold, would we be 8-4 right now? Maybe. I'd probably more say 7-5, but fighting for a playoff berth, sure, we would. Absolutely. We'd be fighting for the playoffs right now, but we would not be a Super Bowl contender. We go be going back to mediocrity, going back to the 18th pick in the draft, instead of maybe we get a top 10 pick that we can get a couple players that can really make a difference. Not a quarterback. I still believe in McCarthy, but maybe we get another defensive lineman. Maybe we get a secondary piece. I don't know what it is. Maybe a receiver. I don't know. But once you have a high draft pick, you could really make a difference. When you're in the 20s every single year, you're not getting a lot of talent. And Kwesi hasn't drafted well anyway. So I'm just still preaching patience. I know the season's over. It sucks. It sucks because there was a lot of hype, a lot of hope in this year. McCarthy hasn't been good, no, but the coaching has been so much worse. Development has been so much worse. Only thing that's been good is the defense. So thank you, Brian Flores. Thank you, defense, for fighting. I feel bad that we're wasting this year, but this team has so much potential next year. The schedule is easier next year, I believe. Not outside of the fourth place schedule. I think the divisions we play is easier than the NFC East and then the Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, all those guys in the AFC North.
AFC
It's a
North.
it's a lot easier than that next year. Just saying. Just gotta be patient. Next year is a different year. Who knows what's gonna happen?
One thing I wanted to touch on, Andrew, you talked about, stats, right, of quarterbacks that don't look great in the beginning. And not that people don't know this, but just for comparison's sake, right? Like, so JJ McCarthy stats right now, He's got 929 yards passing, 54% completion rating, 6 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 57.9 passer rating. And so I thought of just three quarterbacks of who to compare this to. And um, the first one had 2 interceptions in his first year and literally a zero rating outside of that. Moving on to the next season for this person, about 3,000 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 85 passer rating. Third season, 3,300 yards, 19 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, 72.2 passer rating. Not impressive numbers, especially that 24 interceptions. I mean, that is huge.
Hmm.
Um, like that's crazy. Um, and then shifting to the next quarterback, um, you have 948 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 60.1 passer rating. And then the final quarterback, you have 2,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 67.9 passer rating. Not great numbers. And you want to
Mm-mm.
know who those quarterbacks were? Brett Favre, Donovan McNabb, Josh Allen.
Hmm.
Sometimes things take time. Um,
Hmm.
I was actually going to put another quarterback in here, but I didn't have time to go back to it. But Sam Darnold has some pretty crappy numbers from his first few
Exactly.
seasons.
Hmm.
Sometimes things just take time, so you got to be patient. And
Yep.
well, here's the other thing too. The reason why I feel different from you, right? And I think why Eagles fans can have a right to feel different from Vikings fans. We are in our window. It will
Hmm.
close. It will not stay open for forever. The Chiefs window, I think, is potentially closing. So, there's room to feel frustrated by if you're mismanaging a window. I did not think the Vikings were in their window yet. In fact, I remember even from, we were talking in the early preseason days that I felt like this was a good prep window. This was a good build up
Hmm.
window.
I always
Your
thought
real
that next
window,
year was the time that
yes.
it started. This year was, let's see what you can do, maybe make a playoff run. I was hoping this year would be, let's get our first playoff win because KOC has not had a playoff win so far. That was the
Mhm.
ultimate goal for this year, get a playoff win. Of course, that's not going to happen now. Now the rest of the year is develop some of these young players, and we'll see if that can happen. But yeah, if Vikings fans thought this was a Super Bowl year, then they were crazy.
I mean, you can always hope for that, but you also have to be realistic. You
Hmm.
have to be realistic with yourself. And the other part too is like my team has way more resources than your team. Our running back room should be better. Our wide receiver room, I would still say is better. It should be better between as far as what we have to work with. I would say that Dallas Goedert is a better tight end right now than Hawkinson. I would say that Devontae Smith is a better number two right now than Addison or Naylor or anyone on the Vikings that's with Jefferson. Jefferson, I can see why you'd go for him over AJ Brown. That's understandable, but our offensive line should be better. There's just it's different when your team is building up, and the team is building up right now for the Vikings, and so you got to be patient. And um, I just don't know why JJ McCarthy is a punching bag right now. I don't see why he deserves that. He's playing his best he can,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to say anything about when you had mentioned the Max Brosmer things, but it's so hard to go in and look good when you're put in the game for the
Especially
first
against the
time.
Seahawks defense, which is probably the third best defense in the league right now, fourth in
Oh,
that range.
can we talk about one other thing real quick? This isn't Viking specific, but this is um you want a blueprint of how to stop the Seahawks. This was the game. This was the blueprint of how
Hmm.
to beat the Seahawks. It's just the offense of the Vikings didn't capitalize. The
Hmm.
J Jackson Smith and Jigba was a no-show, and there went the
Hmm.
offense. That's literally what happened.
Yep.
And that's what we've talked about. We both have said for weeks is that this is a one-trick pony team that, again, I will argue it until the end of the season and until things change.
Hmm.
Wasting money on Cooper Cup was a bad idea. He's just not doing nearly enough to prove that worth of that contract. The Rams made a smart deal, getting out, getting Devontae Adams. That was
Hmm.
such a smart swap, and it's paid dividends. Um,
Yeah.
but I give the Vikings a lot of props for shutting down Jackson Smith and Jigba. For weeks, it
Yeah.
felt like he was impossible, that no one was going to be able to do it. But hey,
Hmm.
this is your game plan.
They
Go
might
watch
they
the
might have
film.
ended the record. They might have ended that record. I think he's still probably on pace to break it, but like I was telling you in the chat, every year it seems like there's always one game, a dud game that these players have that they could have broken a record if they didn't have that dud game. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I mean, I was very impressed. It was a good performance overall
Hmm.
um, by the defense. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
the NFC man is wide open, wide open. It's
Hmm.
I don't know who it's going to be. Um, so we'll see. It's going to be really interesting to follow. But wow, this year the parity of the NFL is just
It's wild.
continuing to roll.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
wild. It's a ton of fun. And we have 5 weeks left.
crazy,
Hmm.
crazy. I can't believe we have 5 weeks left.
Yep. Yep. Then we're looking to next year. Well, that's all I had.
Same. Nothing else I wanted to cover.
All
This is good,
right.
man.
Yeah,
Glad we got to dig into it and vent.
absolutely. And then we'll get into our game picks in our next episode. Thank you guys for joining us in this episode of the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we will see you next time.
We'll see everybody.